Well, hey guys, Mason here. And in last week's video where we went over the 3rd gen KLR 650, one of the main comments that I saw over and over again was talking about the weight of the new KLR and how it's heavier than it was before. And today we're going to go over some of the reasons why it's heavier and also how it compares to some of the other bikes on the market. All right, let's have a look. So we know from Kawasaki's press release on the launch of the new KLR 650 that the weight is up a little bit this time. It's up to 460 pounds wet from 432, which is a weight gain of about 28.5 pounds. Now they do give some reasons why it's a bit heavier in the press release. One is the wheelbase is slightly longer. It's 2.5 inches longer. It has a larger front brake disc and a thicker rear brake disc. It also has a honeycomb catalyzer, so a catalytic converter in the exhaust somewhere. And we know that those aren't light, so that's going to definitely add a bit of weight. It has a longer rear swing arm, which obviously is accounting for that extra wheelbase length. And then it has a larger swing arm pivot bolt, a larger diameter axle shaft, and stronger wheel rim material. So all those things are going to add up to the bike just generally being heavier for sure. Now, they have saved some weight as well. It has a lighter starter, ignition coil, and evaporator canister, and the exhaust pipe diameter has been reduced for improved mid-range, and I'm assuming that would be a slight weight savings as well. And it has a sealed battery this time around, which is lighter than the typical wet lead acid. So after taking all of that into account, at the end of the day, the bike is 28 pounds heavier than the 2nd gen KLR was. And I just wanted to have a look today at how that compares to some of the other bikes on the market. Now, this is a weight only comparison. I'm not talking about horsepower or performance here. I just want to look at pure weight, sort of side of the trail, bike's on its side, we have to pick it up. Let's just have a look at how the weight of the KLR compares to the weight of some of these other bikes. Now, something to bear in mind is the fact that the KLR carries more fuel than anything else on the market. So what I've done is I've taken the wet weights of these bikes and I have adjusted the fuel capacity to be the same amount as the KLR carries so that everything's even. So if these bikes carried as much fuel as the KLR does, how do they compare apples to apples? So that's where we're going to go from here. We always joke that the KLR 650 is the super tanker every time we go away on a trip, especially with Melon on the CRF 250L. We've never actually had to use any of the fuel that I'm carrying, but it has always been part of the backup plan for sure because the KLR carries so much. At 6.1 gallons, it's the most by far of anything else in the category. The next closest one to it, of course, is the KTM 790 at 5.3 gallons, and then the Triumph Tiger at 4.4. So the Gen 3 KLR is coming in at 460 pounds, but it carries 6.1 gallons of fuel. And that is Kawasaki's claimed curb weight. So let's put that up against something like the Honda XR 650. Now, it's the lightest one on the list by far. Some of that will have to do with the fact that the bike is air-cooled and not liquid. It's the only air cooler on the list. But the XR 650 comes in at 346 pounds, but it carries 2.8 gallons of fuel. So when it's corrected for the same amount of fuel that the KLR carries, the XR 650 would come in at 365.8 pounds. So that brings the Honda XR 650 in at almost 100 pounds lighter than the 3rd gen KLR. Now the next bike we're going to have a look at is the Suzuki DR 650. Likely the closest direct competitor to the KLR for sure. It's a stripped down KLR, you don't get the fairing and the windscreen, and maybe a little less rider comfort when it comes to the seat and just general ergonomics, but it is very similar to the KLR, good off-road, and it definitely is a bit lighter. The DR 650 comes in at 366 pounds, and it carries 3.4 gallons of fuel. So when you correct it for the fuel load that the KLR can carry, The DR650 comes in at 382.2 pounds. So the DR now against the 3rd gen KLR is 78 pounds lighter, and that is significant. The DR compared to the 2nd gen KLR, there was a 50-pound difference, and I mean, you could justify that away by the wind protection and more comfortable seat, but there definitely is a difference now. So if you are looking at weight comparison alone and the heavy weight of the KLR doesn't appeal to you off-road, the DR may be a good route for you for sure. So now we're going to step into the comparison against the bikes that everybody seems to be lining the KLR up with. Not necessarily fairly, that's for sure. But we're going to talk about the Yamaha T7, the KTM 790, and the Triumph Tiger 900. I'm going to start off with the T7. It comes in at 452 pounds, and it carries 4.2 gallons of fuel. So when you correct it for the same amount of fuel the KLR carries, the T7 comes in at 464 pounds. 4 pounds heavier than the new KLR. So when we strictly talk about weight and picking these bikes up, there isn't any difference between the KLR and the new T7. Now the KTM 790, it's 450 pounds wet, and it carries 5.3 gallons of fuel, which is the most fuel capacity of anything else. It's the next closest to what the KLR carries. So when you correct the KTM 790 out, it would weigh 454.8 pounds wet, or 5.8 pounds less than the KLR 650. So the 790 does have a very, very slight weight advantage over the new KLR. Now the Triumph Tiger 900 Rally Pro, it weighs 443 pounds wet, but it carries 4.4 gallons of fuel. So when you correct it out, the Triumph Tiger 900 Rally Pro comes in at 453.2 pounds. So it's 7.4 pounds lighter than the KLR 650. So all in all, those 3 bikes compared to the KLR are actually very close. If you have to pick a KLR up on the side of the trail, or you have to pick your T7 up on the side of the trail, you're not going to notice a whole lot of weight difference, in my opinion. So there you go, guys. The new KLR 650, although it's heavier than the 2nd gen was, I don't think it's out of the range of where it should be. So what we're really talking about here is a sub $7,000 motorcycle that has about the same weight as some of the other bikes that are available on the market that do a very similar thing. I just thought it was an interesting comparison. When you actually top the rest of the bikes up to what the KLR can carry, it actually didn't do so bad. It's pretty much, you know, right with the pack at the very least. So let me know what you think in the comments below, guys. And as always, thank you very much to my patrons for making this possible. And thank you very much for following along. Mind how you go, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye for now. Hey guys, if you liked that video, hit the thumbs up button for us. It goes a long way towards helping out the channel. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button in the upper corner for new videos every Sunday. Be glad to have you along for the ride.